Alright everyone, yesterday there was a 6.4 earthquake, a relatively major quake off the coast of Oregon, and it's worrisome because it could be a sign of things to come. A 6.4 is not going to generate a tsunami. It's a big quake. If it happens on land in the right spot, it can do catastrophic damage, but it's not like an unprecedented, it's not like the Fukushima quake. The problem is we have precedent in that region for once in a long time, several centuries, I believe it is, a major quake like a 9.0, 9.5 happening that could be larger than the Fukushima quake and could wipe out a very large proportion of life anywhere near the coast on all sides of the Pacific. Like the freaky thing is, one large enough in that region could send a 10-foot, maybe 20-foot wall of water all the way to Japan. Couldn't that hazard the current Fukushima efforts as well? I think that'd be a little bit of a problem. Unfortunate for everyone that lives in coastal Oregon and Washington State, all the way up into British Columbia, parts of southern Alaska, and certainly the northern half of California. We've seen large quakes offshore. Sometimes these tsunamis can be very devastating. The problem is this. We know that these fault zones, like where this quake happened, are active. They are active faults. They are absorbing pressure over time, but they're not letting off quakes. And what happens is, it's like in Southern California, some parts of the world, you have quakes on a constant basis. That's not where you have to worry. It's when the quake suddenly goes silent that you have a problem. In the case of these faults, one of the faults up there off the coast of the northern Pacific region, like off the coast of Oregon, and I don't think it's this fault, I think it's one of the others, has been like, it was semi-active until recently, and for the last few years it's been locked. I think I made a video about that some time ago. But there are several fault lines there. They're all active, and what happens is if you don't have regular earthquakes, it's building up pressure. This represents a release of pressure, a chunk of rock breaking off and suddenly dropping and letting off an earthquake. The problem is, what if it's a foreshock? Now, the chances are very small, less than 5% that that's the case. But we saw, like in the last Southern California quakes, the first quake, which already did some damage, it was, what was it, a 5 point something, was a foreshock. The next day you had the 6 point something that was the main quake, and then you had several other fairly large quakes attendant, and then it peters off. That could happen here, and so my advice to people that are, below 50 feet sea level, below 50 feet above sea level or so, along the Oregon and Washington state coasts in and around that region, is that for at least the next few weeks or so, it would be a good idea to pay closer attention to, like, maybe set up USGS alerts or something. I know Twitter, you can get USGS alerts if you haven't been banned. Far be it for me to suggest that it could be unconstitutional for that to be the case, because you'd have citizens die because they didn't get their Quake alerts or something. Anything over an 8.0 though could easily trigger a tsunami there. And you got to think, it's far enough off coast, so a 6 point something, you feel a little bit of shaky around the shoreline areas, not much more. A bigger quake though, you'll get some damage along the shoreline regions just from the quake before the tsunami hits. If you feel shaky, you might want to seek higher ground. If you feel shaky, go to USGS and say, oh, shit, the big one just hit, maybe I'll survive. Sucks to be people that are in some of those extended low-lying valley areas. Good if you're above like 100 feet above sea level, I can't imagine you're going to get a 100-foot tsunami. That would be a catastrophic, like the shaking alone from such a quake in the Cascadia fault would probably kill you anyway, so it might not even be worth your time to bother fleeing at that point, unless you're far inland. And I'm not saying that this is a foreshock. Again, the chances are low, which is good. But eventually, a locked fault like that is technically, though still active, will let off a big one. It is only a matter of time. New Madrid. At some point, another New Madrid quake is going to happen. It's going to be big, and it's going to be really fucking damaging, and it's going to decimate the fucking industry in that region for hundreds of miles. We're not prepared for it. A lot of parts of the United States that aren't typically seismically active, no attempts whatsoever have been made to retrofit any structures. There's no emergency preparedness for such things. People have storm shelters because twisters go through each year, and yet they don't have any contingency beyond that, really, for quakes. The last place I'd want to be during an earthquake is in a below-ground shelter, by the way. I think that would be scary. Yeah, the walls are acting like a liquid right now. It's kind of psychedelic. So I just decided to get totally wasted and just enjoy my 5 minutes. It'd be like a fucking being on a roller coaster, I would think. You'd probably lose your lunch at some point. But again, my advice to people, if you're living near one of these locked faults in the world, and this is by far not the only one, basic preparedness. Have some food on hand, batteries, fucking lights, basic first aid. It might be a good idea to have some sort of generation system, or even just, like an extra solar panel lying around that can operate a simple radio so you can get updates and shit like that. It goes a long way. Having some fresh potable water. Have a 10-gallon plastic drum of water on hand. By the way, waste removal, very important. Some people overlook that. Can you imagine you get into the bunker and you got to wait 2 weeks, but everyone has to shit and piss in the corner? And you have to rig up some, you just have to take a bunch of clothes and piss and shit into your clothes. Or something like you piss in the used 10-gallon jug. Everyone has to squat over the jug for 2 weeks while you wait and the radioactive rain passes by. That'd be pretty bad. I think morale might drop and somebody might go crazy, which is probably the biggest risk in the meantime. You might want to take care of that. Have those that you can get, I think, little lined bags that you can take a shit in those and it'll sort of dissolve the shit. It'll compost it, I think. Maybe I'm thinking of some other sort of waste removal thing. I know you can get a composter toilet or something. I don't know how that'd work if you're already below ground, but yeah, you should probably take basic steps just in case. And that goes for anyone in the zone that's potentially seismically active. And people in central Oklahoma, apparently you can have a 5.5 quake, and there's no quake preparedness there as far as buildings go. You've lost brick buildings already there because of fracking. It's actually insane that can happen. It'd be interesting if that movement in the middle of the continent actually spurred on additional movement along the Ring of Fire. I wonder if anyone's done a study on that. Maybe there's a little bit of a statistical anomaly there. But yes, a large quake there could cause massive problems in the shoreline all up and down, the North American Pacific coast. It could cause problems in coastal fucking Japan, places over China and parts of coastal Russia and Kamchatka, potentially. Yeah, you could get a 20-foot wall of water someplace like that. I think that would definitely do damage to the generation systems pumping Fukushima every day. By the way, that still hasn't been solved. There's your future on nuclear power that's built too close to a fucking coastline. That's about all. Peace out.